Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure, and what you're looking at is my pellet stove. After 23 years of service, the control board failed on my pellet stove. Didn't fail completely. The part of the board that runs the feed for the auger, to feed the pellets into the stove, that's what went bad. So just quickly, as I want to just explain how a pellet stove works, and then we could talk about each part of it, right? The auger motor, the thing that failed on mine, is what feeds the pellets into the pot. Then you have two blower motors. You have one combustion blower that blows air through the pellets so that they burn properly, and you have a heat exchanger fan, right, that blows the hot air out. In my case, it comes out those tubes on top, and it blows the hot air into the room. What the control board does is it kind of makes some decisions for you, such that it runs the combustion fan at the right speed, such that the heat exchanger could get as much heat out of there as possible, and the auger could feed at the right rate so that the pellets are all consumed. Whether you're running at a low setting where it slows everything down, or a high setting where it speeds everything up, right, it manages to tweak all the ratios of speeds and feed and all that, so the heat comes out and keeps you warm. You'd end up with pellets building up in the stove and not burning, or pellets burning out too quickly and the auger not keeping up with that, which means your stove will go out. So that's what this board does. And what is still working on there is the heat exchanger fan and speed, and the combustion chamber fan and speed. But once again, no more feed auger. So what I did is I looked around and I went to visit my friends on eBay, and they have this really wonderful pre-built control circuit for something that has to be on and off and on and off. So you could set those on and off times. And in my case, using it on the auger, the on time is how much time the auger is feeding for, and the off time is how much time the auger's off and the pellet stove's consuming the pellets I just dumped in there. Now, if you look at this, see the red number? That's the on time, and the blue number is the off time. I have it set to be on for 4 seconds, and you'll see it right now. See, 4 seconds, that red light came on. So it just fed for 4 seconds, and now it's going to be off for 10 seconds. I found that that's really a pretty good setting. Pellets don't build up, and it doesn't run low on fuel. I obviously could tweak my combustion fan speed to consume the pellets a little quicker, or slow it down to consume them a little slower. But right now, this seems to be putting out an optimum amount of heat. Everything seems to be working properly, and I'm very happy with it. This little control box was cheap, right? It was only $5.42, another $2.30 to ship it. So if you put those numbers together, what do you come up with? Somewhere around $8. So for $8, you could repair your auger feed. From a safety interlock point of view, the auger will not feed if this diaphragm, this barometric pressure switch, is not made. So if the combustion fan is not running, that diaphragm switch that determines the difference in barometric pressure, if that is not happy, I can't turn my auger on. So that interlock is still functioning. If through some way this thing consumes all its pellets and the fire goes out before the auger feeds again, what will happen then is this thing does not sense fire, so it'll keep feeding. And if you keep feeding the stove, you can run into other problems. it might smolder and start again, and then there's going to be too many pellets in there. It could overheat. You know what I mean? So generally speaking, this whole mess needs to be kind of kept an eye on. You really can't do these alterations without creating a certain amount of safety issues. So if anybody decides to experiment with their stove and use that controller or another controller to run your auger, and perhaps a set of separate fan controllers, because let's say your board died completely and you decide to put your own fan controllers, one for each fan in there, you could do that. But once again, you're not running any safety interlocks anymore, and you could end up with trouble, right? You could underfeed your stove. It goes out, very frustrating because you have to keep lighting it. You could underfeed your stove. Then you could overheat it, which could become a fire hazard, right? If your electronics aren't hooked up well, you can end up with another fire hazard. I always recommend keeping a fire extinguisher right there, right close. Excellent for putting out a fire should you have one. Also excellent if you have somebody break into your house, you spray them in the face and hit them over the head with it, and almost as handy as any other home protection device. So here we have it. I just kind of have it hooked up as a Rube Goldberg right now because I didn't know if it was going to work, and I wanted to get this out quickly because there might be somebody else out there with a dead pellet stove. To provide the 12 volts to that circuitry, this is one of those transformers that you use for your cordless extension phone. It says it puts out 9, but if you actually put your meter on it, you discover it puts out 12. To hook up the relay side of that, right, so you put the 12 volts into it. There are 4 wires, so those are the first 2 wires. You got the 12 volt that makes the whole thing function. The second 2 wires just go to the relay, so when the relay's on, you have power. When the relay's off, you don't. So I put 110 into one side of the relay. I put the auger into the other side. The neutral on the 110 I hooked up to the other side of the auger, so you have a complete circuit. Every time that relay closes, it puts power to the auger. I see I have quite a bit of space right here, so I can probably make a hole in the cabinet and have that sit right there, so it's not quite as kludgy. This stove I no longer consider safe enough to run unattended because, once again, the way I have it rigged up, God forbid anything happens, I'm going to have big trouble. So I kind of have to be around and watch it run. I mean, it's safe, right? I got paper right on top of it. The sides are cool. By the way, don't touch that. So it's relatively safe, you know. But if I'm not here, I don't run the stove. I got to replace it. This thing went just about 23 years. I burn a bag of pellets a day, and I burned about 100 bags of pellets a year. So it takes me a day to burn a bag of pellets. So that's about 2,400 hours a year this thing ran, and you multiply that by 23 years, you come up with a very, very big number, right? This stove has, what is that, 50,000 hours? Right? I mean, it's 50,000 hours on it. This stove treated me well. I did have to replace the combustion fan a couple of times. I also had to replace the heat exchanger fan once. I've had no trouble, knock wood, with the auger other than the drive circuit running. And unfortunately, Jamestown, I don't know if they're still made and if parts are still available in Canada, but they used to have a place in Rhode Island, and it doesn't appear as if parts are available here. And even if they were, does one really want to put a $300 board into a 23-year-old stove that you know, the fans are also all approaching end of life again, when you could get away with putting $8 into it, limp to the end of the season, and use that $300-400 into buying a new stove. So anyway, I hope this video helps a few people out there, and at least helps some people who want to know something about pellet stoves. I want you all to keep your feet down, your heads up, and I want you all to get out there and enjoy each and every day. Bye now.